12.11.5 is here, and we have a whole bunch of patch notes. Newsy news. Hey everybody, my name is Onepeg. Welcome to the channel. If you're relatively new to my content, I would ask that you please consider subscribing to the channel as we do this kind of stuff all the time. So Nikita and his band of merry men decided to release 12.11.5, which is on the roadmap as something that is supposed to be chock full of optimizations. Now, as we all know, Tarkov is notorious for having optimization problems. So we're just going to go down the list and see what it is that we've got in store for ourselves. So first up in this categorical list of changes, the first is optimizations and performance, the majority of which end up talking about reflex being used in the hideout, which has been something that was affecting performance, as well as RAM usage loading in and out of raids having to do with things like sound. They also added this final option here toward the bottom that says, added the enable hideout preload option in the game settings. If enabled, it preloads the hideout. If the option is disabled, the hideout will load only when accessed. Disabling this option will reduce the main menu loading time when starting the game and after finishing raids. The option is disabled by default. So I guess the hope here is that load times when leaving a raid is going to be reduced because, as we all know, some of us, myself included, end up sometimes sitting at a menu for 15 to 20 seconds waiting for the screen to load. In the next category, we have visual and graphical changes. Now, this one is a little bit interesting. Shadow render distance is increased to 500 meters regardless of shadow quality settings to ensure correct shading on locations. The resampling system has also been reworked to optimize performance. Inside of Tarkov, rendering shadows at distance has always been problematic. Not necessarily because of a performance hit, but because of the game advantage that it provides. See, inside of raids, especially in maps like Interchange, when you're looking from the outside to the inside, or hell, even at distance underground inside of the parking garages as a perfect example, outside of a certain radius of distance, say about 50 meters or so, you would stop rendering shadows as long as your shadow rendering was set to the minimum distance allowable. In this case, what they're saying is okay, well, we're not going to let that happen anymore because there was an obvious visual advantage if you didn't have any shadow rendering because you would clearly see player models running around all willy-nilly. So in this case, there should no longer be that gaming advantage for people that have shadows set to a minimum. But of course, getting in there and running around is something that we'll have to test. The other graphical change that they have in here is that they fixed the work of the camera that led to weapon distortion on screen edges on some FOV settings. And now on to gameplay and quality of life changes. So the first one that sticks out right away here is the ability to change weapon fire modes by rotation by double pressing the fire mode key. In my experience, whenever you have something that allows for a double key press, there is always a delay because it defaults to the delay that you set in your game options for how long it waits to see a double press of a key or not. In the case of this, you could just get away with disabling that and just pressing the B key twice in order to change the fire mode, and it would effectively do the same thing because on things like the MP5, there's only 3 fire modes anyway, so you're cycling between them regardless. But for some people, maybe they find this useful. I don't know. They also added a 2 menu button on the first post-raid screen to skip all of the next screens so you can head right to the menu right away. In the preset menu, they added a check mark indicator that will let you know if a weapon matches the mechanic task requirements for Gunsmith. They added a maximum single fire rate parameter for all weapons. This is not something that you're going to see on a tooltip. What this means is that they are rate limiting all weapons in the game now to a maximum fire rate. So for all of the people that are worried that you might be coming up against macro users from time to time, you will no longer be in a situation where you're going to see an M1A being fired at 700 to 1,000 RPM. In this case, they're talking about, or what it looks like, they're rate limiting all of the weapons now so that semi-autos are only going to be able to fire so fast. However fast that is, probably varies from weapon to weapon. I guess we'll have to see. All broken and damaged window glass is now synchronized between all players, even if loading into an already ongoing raid. This was something that, especially in scav raids, if you were loading in mid-raid and some glass in the instance had already been broken, you wouldn't know that it had been broken. It would look like fresh panes of glass regardless. Now it looks like they're going to synchronize that, which is good and a nice quality of life change. There's also some talk here about how they've expanded upon the potential to increase AI of scavs, raiders, and bosses so that they act more complex. Redesigning the quest system. This bullet point is interesting. Optimize the formula of calculating fence reputation penalty when killing scavs while having a high reputation. This one could go either way. Nikita had a discussion with Veritas relatively recently about how there wasn't a great enough penalty when you killed player scavs. And the idea that Nikita and Veritas basically agreed on during the course of that podcast was that Nikita said he would look at increasing the scav penalty, or he agreed that it should be higher for killing player scavs specifically or other scavs when someone has high rep, because the penalty didn't make them want to stop. It effectively created a cushion for them to be able to get away with killing other scavs and not feel it. So it could be that, or it could be that at max reputation, killing other scavs and bosses and stuff isn't going to have as drastic of a penalty as it once did, because as we all know, if you have max rep and you kill a scav boss or a scav guard, you end up losing like all of the rep that you had accumulated up until that point, and you get to start over again. And that's only if you killed one of them. My knee-jerk reaction, my guess here, would end up being that if you kill other scavs, regardless of what the scav is, when you have high rep, the penalty is likely increased in this case. So I would be very, very careful about going on killing sprees, and I've been preaching this forever. I would be very, very careful about going on killing sprees if you end up having max rep, because you are at a high risk of losing it all. And this last one in the QOL section is pretty huge. The raid session ID in the bottom left corner is now unique for every player. It will no longer be possible to tell on which server a streamer is currently playing. And then last, we have some bug fixes. Various object penetration fixes on locations, which is good because getting shot through concrete sucked. Scav faction was being displayed as Savage instead of Scav in the lobby screen, which is also nice. Apparently, Savage was never a title. It was a miscategorization. And then the big one, hell yeah. The Taz KS-23 carbine was shooting well below the aiming point. We did it, chat. We did it. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, about time. Sorry, just had to be happy there for a second. The Taz had been historically shooting low. The Taz was shooting low. It was shooting super low. It had been bugged forever. I had told the devs about it forever ago. They told me that they knew. They said they were fixing it. It had been bugged. Let's go. It is time. We're going after kneecaps, chat. Let's do it. Weapon loading through the chamber was leveling mag drill skill slower than its supposed value, so I guess now the reloading through a chamber was not leveling mag drills as fast as it should have, and that's going to be increased. Hideout areas could remain inaccessible at the end of a build timer until the game was restarted. This was a pretty common bug. What would happen is if you were still in game while you were building a hideout section and the hideout section finished, you wouldn't be able to do anything with that until you restarted the game and the game went, oh yeah, you actually finished this. So that's a nice one. Apparently there was a bug where Tagilla would chase you in factory and end up going through a cistern and get stuck inside of it. At the start of raids, breathing sounds wouldn't be heard when loading into a raid if you were wearing Tagilla's Yubei or Gorilla welding masks, and now the breathing sounds are going to be present, I guess, on raid start, which is nice because for whatever reason, this has been an ongoing bug with a lot of different helmets. I mean, maybe they've just fixed this one and there's still other helmets that are bugged. I don't know. Cultist poison knife count amount would not get counted correctly. So this was a bug that was kind of plaguing everybody. Well, I guess if you were a meme lord. What would happen is that you would end up getting a cultist knife that it would have a poison charge of 2 out of 2, and then you would hit one of your buddies with it as a laugh, and there would be no poison applied at all because the charge count wasn't being shown right. I guess now they fixed it, so that's cool. The flashlight light going through obstacles. So I wonder if now they fixed it so that flashlights won't end up going through walls and stuff. That would be ridiculous. If you're telling me, if you're telling me that if I go to labs and there's a raider walking around and they're shining a flashlight and I'm not going to see that through 2 floors, Nikita, come on. No way. Players could move without animation if they quickly pressed movement keys. Yeah, so this was a thing where if somebody had a macro that was like quickly tapping W or quickly tapping strafe key or something like that, there wouldn't be any movement animation. Truck windows visible through the fog on customs locations, just like glasses that glow in the fog. But if you notice, there's nothing on the bug list that talks about glasses getting fixed. Only like 3 or 4 pairs of those glasses work. And then fixed various issues causing error 500. Well, that rounds out just about all of it, boys. We'll be getting in there in Tarkov in the next day or so. Thank you very much for coming by and checking out the video. Hope you guys enjoyed your stay. As always, please consider subbing, liking, commenting, blah, 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 and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.